So welcome back to the Renew podcast brought to you by Simple Online Pharmacy. Delighted to welcome our regular feature on this, Sarah LeBrock, who has founded All About Obesity. Welcome back, Sarah. Good to see you again.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
And also delighted to welcome our own responsible pharmacist, Aamina. Aamina, it's great to have you on the podcast, and we've got a wealth of experience on the medical and clinical side of treating people for obesity with GLP-1s. So really excited to hear a little bit more about the clinical side of this.
Thank you very much, and thanks for having me on, guys. Excited for this conversation.
So, it's a really hot topic in the media. Wegovy, Ozempic, Saxenda, and these GLP-1s in general. And we felt it would be really important to dedicate an episode of our podcast to address particularly questions and concerns that might relate to things people have heard in the media, or, stories that might be getting people a little bit nervous, a little bit scared. So before we do that, I think it'd be great to just dig into a bit of an explanation of what are GLP-1 medications and how do they work. Aamina, maybe you can just talk into that for us a little bit.
Yep, no problem. So Wegovy works by mimicking the effects of GLP-1, like you mentioned. So what is GLP-1? It's a glucagon-like peptide, which is a gut hormone, which plays a role in signaling the brain, and it makes you feel that you're full. By doing this, medication can help you reduce your appetite, which can lead people into eating less. It also slows down the rate at which your stomach empties, which can also have that contribution of making you feel full and reducing your food intake. A lot of patients have maybe previously been on a medication called Saxenda, which was also an injectable weight loss medication that was licensed. And how is Wegovy different to this? So they both are GLP-1 medications, but Wegovy is a weekly injection. It's convenient, it's easy to use, and it's effective. So that's the difference between the two, that one is a weekly injection, the other one was daily. So it can be easier for patients to just take it once a week rather than having to remember to take it every day. And GLP-1s, they tend to work best as it's proven with healthy eating and exercise. So you need to have a balance of both as well as taking the medication.
There's a lot of confusion out there in the media about Ozempic and Wegovy. Could you shed a little bit of light on this? What are the differences? Where does that confusion come from?
Yep, so this is actually quite a common thing that a lot of patients get a bit confused about. So they're hearing the words Ozempic and Wegovy and they're being told that they're the same thing. So they are the same active ingredient. However, Ozempic is licensed for diabetes rather than for weight loss, whereas Wegovy is licensed for weight loss treatment. There are providers that supply Ozempic, but that's known as being off-label prescribing. However, that's something that we choose not to do. Ozempic is available in slightly different strengths as well compared to Wegovy, but we have been able to help patients who want to transition to a licensed weight loss medication, Wegovy, and being able to switch over from Ozempic to Wegovy with ourselves.
Okay, that's really helpful. So I guess if someone was wanting to get hold of Wegovy that had previously been on Ozempic, it's probably helpful just to tell them how they can do that. So
yep. Yeah, absolutely. So if a patient was previously prescribed Ozempic from another provider, they're able to order the same similar strength, or it might be lower than the one that they're on, just because it's ever so slightly different, the strengths. But once they place an order through ourselves, they would have to just show evidence of previous use of their Ozempic. So if a patient was on a 1 milligram of Ozempic, they're able to order Wegovy 1 milligram, as long as they can provide evidence that they have previously taken it and when their last use was, because again, with this medication, it needs to be taken and prescribed in a certain way. So if a patient has had a gap in their treatment at all, they might become a little bit unwell if they start on a higher dose than what they're supposed to be on.
Okay, that's really helpful. So it's available to order from us on our website. You can come in and complete the assessment form, And if they're already on a dosage, they just give the information through their form of their dosage and show evidence of it, and we should be able to move them over to Wegovy.
Yeah, absolutely.
So every month in our podcast, we'd like to address a bit of the science behind obesity. And this is something I think, probably both of you have got experience of. Aamina, obviously from the clinical side, and then Sarah, so your lived experience. We'd like to talk about this word titration. It's quite a clinical word, so I think it'd be good if you could just help us understand what it means, Aamina. And then I'd like to understand a little bit more about what is titration for Wegovy.
So titration essentially means that you need to go up a dose each month and for this example of Wegovy, a patient would start on the lowest dose of 0.25 milligrams. Wegovy comes in 5 different strengths, so the patient would need to start at the lowest and then increase gradually month on month so that they are able to then not experience such extreme side effects of nausea, vomiting, if they were to jump onto a higher strength. So you need to allow time for your body to accumulate the drug so that then it works effectively for you and that you're not experiencing such drastic side effects. So a common question that a lot of patients have is, I don't really feel like the lowest dose is working for me. I want to go up higher and I don't feel like me just going up one step. I feel like I want to go up a couple of doses and that works better for me. But it's not the way that it should be prescribed. The guidance doesn't allow for a patient to just jump and skip doses because there's not enough studies to suggest that that's effective and that it's safe for a patient to do that. So with this medication, you need to start at the beginning and month on month increase gradually. What I would recommend, and something that I've noticed with some of our patients is they are used to seeing such good results with Saxenda because they've been on such a high dose, and then switching over to Wegovy and they're starting from the lowest strength, they're maybe not feeling the effects straight away. But I just remind them that when you start your Saxenda journey in the past, you would have felt the same, that you didn't feel the effects straight away, and you just need to be patient with it. It takes a couple of weeks to start noticing the effects of the appetite reduction. So usually either by the end of the 0.25 milligram month, you start to notice the effects, or around the 0.5 milligrams, so which is month 2 for a patient.
And Sarah, I don't know if there's anything you wanted to share around that, because I know that you're also on your own weight care journey, and you might have some, lived experience to share on titration. And
we know that some of the side effects of the GLP-1s is that there's nausea, there's kind of gastro side effects, and this is because people are needing to get used to this change in the gut hormones. And if we went straight in at 2.4 milligrams, which is the highest dose of Wegovy, someone would feel very ill, like if they went straight in that. So that's why we have to start at the low dose and work up, and actually I've got an example of a friend of mine that actually has sourced some 1 milligram Ozempic recently, and hadn't been on anything before, and went straight in at the 1 milligram thinking, oh, I'll be fine, let's try this. And she literally was being sick every 30 minutes for a whole day. And just felt horrendous. And I was like, gosh, I warned her and told her this would happen. I said, please, you should be starting on the very low dose and start, working your way up. And she didn't listen. And consequence was she's been really, really unwell with it. And it's probably put her off as well, like now using the product, because she's like, very conscious of. And I think this is what my concern is, because there's so many people providing this medication kind of without the support and without the education and without the guidance around how you use these medications. People are going to have adverse effects to it, and then therefore blame the drug when actually it's not the drug's fault. Actually, they're not doing it correctly and they're not getting the support that they need correctly. But also my concern is that someone might have a really adverse effect to this because they're on the wrong dose. And ultimately, it might be quite a detrimental then to the class of drugs generally. So we need to be responsible with our usage. So that's my little plea.
Absolutely.
Wise words, Sarah. And yeah, as one of the biggest private providers of GLP-1s in the country, it couldn't be more in agreement with what you're saying. And it's absolutely the only way that we will operate with our patients is to take them up that titration path, as Aamina's so eloquently described it. And you mentioned that your friend was trying to source Ozempic, and there's this kind of frenzy for this medication out in the marketplace. Why do you think they're so popular at the moment, Sarah? What do you think it is that's just creating so much
I think
interest.
primarily it's come down to the celebrity kind of talk and media kind of furore around it. I think because when you think back to medications being in the media, the ones that spring to mind for me historically are Viagra, and also I suppose OxyContin. When you look at that now, and you kind of just go, gosh, like it feels like this is the next thing, because it's just like everyone's talking about it, everyone's kind of seeing it as this amazing thing, which it is. But it's also a medication for a chronic condition. And I think when we're coming away from that too much, it's like we're focusing on it being this aesthetically pleasing thing to do, to kind of go to the next ball or go on holiday to lose a bit of weight. And it's kind of, the amount of people I get contacting me saying, Sarah, where can I get hold of this? And I'm like, you don't qualify for this. Like, this is not a product you should be taking. Like, you do not live with obesity. So please, like, this is not for you. But just desperate. I think it's because we live in a society where everyone's trying to fit into that, like we spoke about in one of our previous podcasts around like weight stigma and stuff, and this whole like trying to fit into this norm and trying to live in a smaller body because we feel like living in a large body is so unacceptable, that everybody's just desperate to do it no matter what their body shape or size is to some extent. And I think that's the bit that we're up against, is that we're fighting those kind of messaging and that kind of acceptable in society kind of norm that we face every day. And I think we need to keep reminding ourselves that actually people living with obesity like myself are living with a chronic long-term health condition that actually, if we don't address this and if we don't treat ourselves and get our weight down and start being healthier, we are going to have long-term consequences and other comorbidities, etc. And I think we need to remind ourselves of that, because I think that message is getting missed by the media. It's all about, oh, look how great she is, oh, she's using Ozempic, or she's using this, and it's actually about, no, well, why don't we focus on, oh, this person's done it and look how much their health has improved, or look at the, because that's the message we should be giving out, not look how great they look, because that's kind of irrelevant.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And the session that we had with Dr. Stewart was just so eye-opening, and the impact that weight stigma can have. And I'd really appeal to anyone listening to this podcast, if you're interested in learning more about weight stigma, that's definitely a podcast worth listening to. One of the things we really want to do through to speaking into this topic is bust the myths, bust the taboos, and really expose those downright lies that are out there. And as you say, Sarah, there's so much media attention, celebrity attention. Everybody's hearing about this drug and they're trying to get their hands on it. And because it's so popular, the launch of it has had to be restricted so that we can make sure that anyone who starts taking the medication can continue on the medication. And so because of that, there's just unfortunately not enough to go around. However, there are, as you say, there's this emerging black market that's emerged as a result of people selling so-called Ozempic or Wegovy equivalents. And people are getting very, very ill from it. There was an article just today on the BBC about someone who was throwing up blood because they'd taken this fake medication. So, I'd really like to help clarify to this audience, or anyone who's looking to get their hands on Wegovy, how do they know that they're getting the right medication? Aamina, maybe you can help educate on that. How do you know you're getting medication that's licensed, that's the real stuff, and how do you know it's being prescribed responsibly?
Yeah, absolutely. As Sarah, this ties in really actually nicely with the points that Sarah had mentioned earlier about making sure that patients are, first of all, suitable for this medication or accessing it, and with a licensed weight loss medication, it's for patients that fit a certain criteria. So it's not for all patients whose BMI is, underweight or even healthy, because again, with crazes that patients maybe see like in the media or they see on social media of, celebrities using this, and they think that, if they can use it, why can't I get access to it? But it's really important to make sure that if you are accessing medication that is suitable for you, and that you fit the criteria, and that you're getting it from a reputable pharmacy that has reputable prescribers. So within our organisation, we only have UK registered doctors that do the prescribing, just because that's the model that we feel works best. And we want to always ensure that with a medication like Wegovy, and with the risks that come with it being such a high profile medication, that we are sourcing all of our medication directly from reputable direct to pharmacy wholesalers. So it's only one supplier that we receive this stock from, and we make sure that we're keeping our stock, therefore our supply chain, very secure. We are always encouraging our patients to make sure that they're seeking the healthcare advice and medication from any registered and regulated service. So if they, for whatever reason, decide that they are wanting to look online and they haven't come directly to us, the advice I would give is you need to check that the pharmacy is regulated by regulatory bodies such as GPHC, and that they're on a register, and that they have prescribers that are also on a register. So either UK registered doctors or independent prescribing pharmacists that are, making sure that this medication is safe for you to take.
Okay, that's really helpful, Aamina. So just to recap that, this medication is not for everyone. There's certain criteria that someone should be fitting that means it's suitable for them, and only a registered prescriber would be able to make that assessment, either a GP or a pharmacist, prescribing pharmacist. And you should only access medication from a regulated pharmacy. And you can check that a pharmacy is regulated in the UK by, they should be able to display their pharmacy number, shouldn't they, on their on their
They'll
website?
Have a pharmacy registration number,
Absolutely. So find that pharmacy registration number, and you can go to the GPHC website and look up that registration number, and that will show you everything you need to know about that pharmacy. So that's the first check people can make to make sure that they're getting medication from a trusted source. And if there isn't a regulated pharmacy number, I guess the outcome there is you just have no idea where that medication is coming from.
Absolutely. It could be coming from absolutely anywhere. And unfortunately, with medications like this, and even Viagra we touched on before that Sarah had mentioned, like there was such a black market for drugs like this, where patients maybe are giving non-genuine medications to patients, and they're managing to get it from any sources. So it's very important, especially when it comes to your medication or anything that you're putting inside your body. Even when it comes to vitamins, I would even say, is make sure that you're getting it from somewhere that is a reputable place that you trust, because when it comes to your health, you should be making sure that you're going to a reliable source.
Another marker to look for, and this is kind of off the back of like people coming to me like trying to get hold of these things, is one person sent me a picture of a semaglutide box that just had some random pharma company name on it, and I was like, unless it says Novo Nordisk and it comes in a Novo Nordisk pen in one of their, I don't want to see vials, I don't want to see, that is not semaglutide, that is not a credible product. You need to see that it comes from Novo Nordisk, and it needs to come in one of their pens, the FlexiFill pens, because otherwise it's not the medication. And I think people are just buying these things. This was from an aesthetics clinic that this person had sent me this bot, and I just was like, I just don't know how they're doing it or why. Like, well, I do know why, because they want to make the money from it. But it's like, I just don't understand why people would buy that, though.
Yeah, it's really concerning. And then the other thing I think that's really important that we haven't really touched on, I mean, that's just getting your hands on the right medication from reputable sources who have regulated prescribers. But we haven't touched on, we mentioned earlier on in this podcast that it's not just about the medication. You need to make the lifestyle changes too. And so I also think it's really important that you source this medication from a business that has a real depth of understanding of how these medications work, and can also give you all of the support to make all the different lifestyle adjustments that are going to give you the best chances of getting a good outcome. And so, for example, we have invested hundreds of thousands of pounds into making sure we've got nutritionalists available. We have a clinical team who have diagnosed and prescribed this medication type to over 120,000 people in the UK. We make sure we've got regular monitoring and check-ins with those patients. We have a movement expert, we have a psychology expert to stitch together all the elements that are going to help someone be successful on this journey. And I guess on top of your appeals there of, like, please don't jump the gun and try and titrate too early or too fast. Please also make sure that you are getting all the help and support that you need, the right medication, genuine medication from people who know what they're doing and can give you all the advice. Because again, otherwise it's just not going to work for you and you get frustrated with it, and that affects.
Yeah, I'm just going to go back to, like, because we were talking, this is obviously the myths section. And I think one of the myths that maybe we should have touched upon at a kind of beginning of the conversation is kind of like, a lot of people might be thinking, well, why do we need medication to treat obesity? Like, why is that needed? Because I think that that's one of the questions that I get asked quite a lot, is around, well, surely it's just eat less, move more, Sarah. Like, if people do that, then why do we need to actually then put some sort of drug into your body to actually do that, when it's just a case of willpower and it's just a case of this? And I think it's a really good question, and I can understand why people think and feel that way, because again, society and media and the messaging that we've been told for years has been like, eat less, move more, and it's all just about that, and so personal responsibility, etc. I think, but what we now know is obesity is such a hugely complex chronic condition. It's actually recognized as a disease by WHO, and so we know that there's a lot more to this. And so that is why we need medication, because when people it's not just a case of just BMI, but when people get to a certain BMI, normally probably from a BMI of 35 upwards, the actual point that they would actually be able to get themselves back to a normal body weight, or a low, kind of fitting into the normal BMI range, it will be really challenging for somebody that's got to a BMI of that range, because during that kind of increase in BMI range, what's happening to the body is these incremental changes within their adipose tissue, which is creating more inflammation in the body, which scientifically is then having these like negative effects, kind of, I suppose, on their body, changing the gut hormones levels, etc., to the point where actually they're going to really struggle to get that weight down, because physiologically they will be fighting against lots of things happening in their body that will be trying to keep them at a higher weight. So that is quite a challenge to then get that down. So what we now recognize is that when people do get to that point where they're in that kind of complex and severe obesity range from 35 kind of upwards, they need extra support, just like anybody else does that's got a chronic condition. And I think we just need to start looking at obesity in a very different way when it comes to that, because we would never say to someone who has asthma, you're not allowed an inhaler to help you breathe better, like, or someone that has cancer, you can't have chemotherapy, like, and these are just other chronic conditions. So we need to start looking at obesity in that way, I think, to say, well, this is why these medications are coming through. This is why pharmaceutical companies are investing so much money into looking at the future of this, because they're now recognizing that obesity is a chronic condition and does need support, and somebody will need to manage their weight for the rest of their lives. And this is a tool to help them do that. But, there's the place for them, and it's not just for anyone that just wants to lose a stone or two. We're talking for people that are really at that point where this is a chronic condition and this is really impacting their health, and how we can really help manage that moving forward. So just thought I'd put that in.
Yeah. No, I'm so glad you've mentioned that, Sarah, because we, as you know, have recently been conducting quite a lot of research into the impact of this GLP-1. So we went out to understand how much weight have we helped our patient base lose, and collectively we've helped our patients lose over 113 metric tons, which, just to visualize that's about 10 double-decker buses worth in equivalent weight. And we also saw from that, we were able to then correlate that to how much we would save the NHS on an annual basis from that weight loss, from those patients that have come down a material BMI level. And we looked at patients that have gone from, as you say, the more complex BMI levels of 40 plus down to under 40. That's a big cost reduction for the NHS, moving between those brackets, just in the general support someone needs with their health, who's within those BMI ranges. And then for someone losing enough weight to move from 35 to 40 BMI to under 35 as well, and then 30 to 35 and down to under 30, because there's significant cut-off brackets for the NHS in terms of the cost to the health service to support someone in those different brackets and ranges. And we went out to those patients because we really wanted to understand a bit more about them and their journey and how it had affected their life. And it's really interesting, Sarah, that you mentioned about, it's just about eat less and exercise more. So we asked those patients what weight loss methods they had already tried. And, when you do go on to NHS choices and research obesity, the advice that is there is, restrict your calories, do more exercise, and perhaps join a weight loss management group. And we found that 75% of our patients had tried calorie restriction, 69% had tried exercise, and 62% had tried weight loss groups. And this combination of things is just not working for patients. And we had comments from some of them that, it just broke my heart when I read them. I was desperate. I was just desperate. I just needed something to work. And I think that really, what you've said there really resonates with what we're hearing from a lot of our patients, is that finally they've found something that works for them, and it's not for lack of trying everything else that's widely publicised as how you manage weight.
And I think that's the thing is like, what other chronic condition would you tell someone that it's their responsibility to go away and sort themselves out? You wouldn't tell someone with type 1 diabetes, for instance, like, just go away and let's hope your pancreas starts working again. Like, we know that's not going to happen. So it's kind of like, it's the same with obesity to some extent. If someone, if their GLP-1 levels are out of sync or, whatever, it's like, that's not going to change by just literally going to a weight program or a weight management program, or just by doing a bit of exercise. It needs to be done on a more physiological level. And I think that's what we need to just start recognizing, is that these medications have a real place in addressing the underlying physiological responses that need to happen. And we need to have those other things. It's absolutely not about saying that we don't need to change our eating and that we don't need to look at activity, because we absolutely do as well. But it's kind of a combination of all of those things together that's the most successful thing. And I think that's what we need to really focus on, and kind of just be there to kind of put your arm around people and say, look, you don't have to do this by yourself. Like, this is, we have got some tools, we've got support, and we want to help you through that. And so, yeah, I think it's really a new phase of obesity, I suppose, and how we can support people moving forwards. Very exciting.
It is. It's so exciting. And the research we found, actually, it goes beyond just, as you say, giving people that light at the end of the tunnel. We asked our patients in that survey that I mentioned if they were more aware of what they were eating as a result of being on the GLP-1s, and also if they had made lasting changes to the levels of physical activity. And actually, the results were really, really strong. We saw 87% of people more aware of what they're eating, and 84% made lasting changes to physical activity. So, as well as you say, Sarah, supporting somebody through, those real physiological changes that need to be, given some support and tools to get back to a healthier BMI, it looks like this medication is actually having a lasting impact on people's lifestyle. And we actually asked people as well through that survey, we asked them if they were more committed to making a change in lifestyle if they were paying for the medication themselves. And we saw a really strong response there. Over 70% of people agreed that because they were paying for the medication themselves, they were much more committed to making the lifestyle changes as well, which I found really interesting as well. Maybe a slightly controversial point, because at the same time, you want medication to be available to everybody. You don't want it to be a barrier, the affordability of it. So yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of that.
This shouldn't be around. People should get access to this medication if they fit the criteria for it, and if they are, living with obesity and kind of because it's a chronic condition and we need to have that treatment. And I think it's around, I suppose, just making sure that we can make that more accessible for people. But it is just interesting to see that people are more invested in themselves if they're paying for it sometimes. But again, I'm just like, I'm not sure that is 100% true for everyone either. I think there's lots of people that are probably fully invested but just can't afford to. And, it kind of falls into that mold of like, we shouldn't just be able to do things because we have money. It should be something that everybody kind of gets access to. So I don't know, but I think we do need to make, I think the medications are used in adjunct to diet and exercise. And I think that's the bit that needs the support around it as well, is like making sure people can get access to that support around that kind of food and exercise piece as well, or movement piece, because the medications aren't just going to work on their own. We do need to implement some other changes. And that's a really positive step that we can make. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy. It can just be like, moving more and starting off just walking and just making sure you walk a bit more each day, and just making sure that when you are eating foods, that's a bit definitely for me. I'm starting to notice already. So I'm not eating as much, making sure that actually if I am eating stuff, I'm getting my protein in there and I'm getting nutrients into my diet, and I'm maybe not eating some of the kind of things that I would have maybe ate before, because it's just wasted kind of calories, and I'm not fueling my body in the right way. And I think that's how I'm trying to view it now, is what fuel do I need to function better? If I'm not going to be eating that much, and just kind of thinking of it in that way.
Fantastic. And yeah, I mean, when it comes to things like, we've talked about this there before, but, movement and nutrition, I think it's really important that when we talk about these, we're careful about the language that we use. We talk about exercise, that can conjure up, images of, killing yourself at the gym, really painful, really unenjoyable. It can be quite triggering. And actually what I've found really helpful is, as I've been on my journey, is introduce it really gently and really slowly, and then just build it up. So I started doing 2-minute runs, 2-minute walk, 2-minute run, 2-minute walk. And then I just very gently built it up to 3-minute runs, then 4-minute runs. And now all of a sudden I'm running half an hour without stopping. And I actually really enjoy it now. And I get a bit antsy if I haven't done it for a few days. And I guess when you talk about lasting changes to lifestyle, for me now, I don't think I could ever go back to not having that kind of exercise in my life. But I think what's made, and I'm someone who's never really exercised much at all. But I think what's made the difference for me now is it wasn't a shock to the system. It wasn't an overnight, let's try and run a marathon. It was just really gentle and just build it up very, very slowly. And then just try and layer in things that I enjoy. I enjoy going for walks with friends or coffee. I enjoy swimming. I do that several times a week because I get to sit in the jacuzzi afterwards, which is a nice treat. And it's, how do you move it away from feeling like such a chore, just really, really unenjoyable? I watch, my guilty pleasure TV shows like Married at First Sight whilst I'm running. And so it actually feels like me time. And yeah, it's just trying to find those ways so that actually previously what might have felt like a horrendous kind of chore actually becomes an enjoyable thing that you look forward to and you want to have in your life.
That's really important. That's actually something that I feel like I've had quite a lot of conversation with patients about, is when they first start the treatment, they haven't changed lifestyle habits such as like diet or exercise, and they expect it to be like a magic medication that's just going to make changes for them overnight. But then when I give them suggestions, it's like, okay, let's have a discussion about this. What things do you like doing? And making the changes small and manageable is better than not making any changes at all, because you can build on it always, rather than, I think a lot of people think that if you're on a weight loss journey and you're planning to start your changes all on a Monday, which seems to be my day whenever I want to make any changes in my lifestyle, is that you need to cut everything out, and that it's just becomes more of a chore and more of something that you end up resenting doing, and it needs to be something that you look forward to doing. And the whole mindset piece that we have done a lot of work on with Renews is so important, because just generally with your weight loss journey, you have lots of ups and downs. So maybe month 1, month 2, you're feeling, okay, this is starting to work. I've made the changes I need to, making small changes that are working, but then something might happen in your life, or just generally you might start to feel a little bit deflated, and then that can completely rock your journey. And then you start to feel, okay, I don't have the same momentum I did before. I don't have the same motivation as well. So it's so important. And I think you had touched on this as well, Sarah, before, about how, medication it's a tool in a toolbox, and there's so many different tools as part of this journey. So medication, yes, but diet, exercise, having, the mindset as well, is so important. And then support is such a big thing. And I think that's something that we don't really talk about as much. When someone is going through this journey, they feel very lonely and they don't feel that they have the support, or they don't know where to reach out to go and get support, or if they've got access to speaking to a healthcare professional or just somebody else about their experiences. But very important, and I think it's all part of a toolbox that's going to make someone's journey easier than going through something alone or not having the right tips there.
Oh, that's really helpful, Amna. And when you talk about having access to healthcare professionals and also that support, could you maybe just shed a bit of light on the journey that we take our patients through? So, what do we do to monitor their progress and make sure that the medication's working? And what support is there available for someone?
Yep, absolutely. So when a patient, for the first time that they're completing an assessment form for this medication, there's certain questions that may trigger a follow-up consultation with one of our dietitians, which will then allow the patient to have a follow-on consultation with her, and she can give them additional advice or just, make sure that they are thinking about the medication in the way that it's supposed to be taken. Again, when you've got medication like this that's available to all patients, there might be certain patients who may have eating disorder symptoms that they may not know that they actually have. So it's so important for us to make sure that our patients, first of all, are safe and that they're getting the medication that's suitable for them. And if they're not suitable for it, directing them to their own prescriber for maybe a follow-on consultation, or if they need further advice from one of our pharmacists, we're able to do that. So while the patient is on their journey, our pharmacists are all available, as well as our dietitian, for any just general check-ins that the patient wants to. So it's a free complimentary service that if any of our patients felt that they want to ask some further questions about side effects, which is one that we get a lot of questions on, or we don't feel the medication is really working for me and they've just started Wegovy, or maybe they just have just general questions before starting the medication that, what are the myths, or, we were hearing some things about this maybe not being as effective as Saxenda, or even about stock shortages. Like, if I start this medication with you, am I going to be able to complete my journey with you guys? So they're kind of the common questions that we hear before, during a patient's journey. It would be things, maybe I'm going on holiday, can I take my medication with me? Or this is the first time I'm using it, I'm having some troubles with using my pen. The list is endless. We have a varied list of questions that patients come through, and no question's a silly question, because ultimately it's better that patients are asking anything that they're not sure about. And so we're more than welcome for any questions that come our way, or if patients just want a little bit more support in terms of their nutrition. We've got our dietitian who is on board, and she's able to sit down and have like a one-to-one consultation with patients if they want a more in-depth consultation. So readily available whenever patients are wanting to reach out to us, which I think is such a nice additional service for me to be able to see how our patients are getting on. So just generally, a patient might ask me a question about storage of the medication, but then that's my chance to get to ask them, how are you getting on? How's your journey been? And then I can kind of dip into like the lifestyle changes as well that they're experiencing. So yeah, it's a benefit for myself to be able to get to hear patients' journeys. So when we have patients that call in about side effects, that's my opportunity to get to ask them how are they getting on with their treatment, as well as what kind of lifestyle changes have they been able to, take on board. And then that is an opportunity for me to then be able to give them a bit more information about the great work that we've done with our Renew platform. So from my point, I'm able to give them the clinical perspective of the medication, and I can give them just general lifestyle changes that are going to support them on their journey. But we have an amazing amount of work that's been done with our nutritionalists, our movement coaches, and our psychologists with Renew, that I'm able to then, pass those patients onto that service so that they're able to access it free of charge. And I think that's something that a lot of patients really are quite taken aback, because they think that, oh, I just thought I was just going to get my medication just from you guys. I didn't realise the amount of additional support that's also out there for them. So it's really nice for us to get to share that.
That's great to hear. Thank you, Aamina. So just wrapping up here, we like to, think of, this podcast is here just giving people a lot more information, trying to educate on the science and debunk some of the myths and taboos and lies that are out there. But we also want to make sure we continue to celebrate the journey that everybody's on. And we like to hear about unexpected wins that can come either through a weight loss journey or just generally working in this space. So I'd love to hear from you guys if you've got any unexpected wins you'd like to share. I've certainly got one, and it can be big or small, but for me, one big one for me is I've got my favorite pair of Dubarry boots, which I don't know if anyone's ever tried on a pair of Dubarrys, but make them blooming slim round the calf. And it's really difficult to get your foot into it. And after my second child, I have really, really struggled to get them back on, and it's honestly been pretty horrific to try and drag them on. That I've just stopped wearing them, and now they're sliding on really nicely. And I get to wear my boots and romp about the hills, which is lovely. So yeah, that's my unexpected win. What about you guys? Anything you'd like to share in terms of your unexpected wins?
Yeah, I would say for me, I'm kind of similar to what you were saying, Bex, before about your journey with exercise. Like, I haven't exercised for years, and for me, like, the last time I ever did any exercise was back when I was in high school, and I was forced to do PE and hated it every minute of it. It's such a chore. But since starting, and since we have been talking more about lifestyle changes, I was like, for me, I want to start incorporating and doing more. So I've started doing gym classes, which I thought I would never do. So that's been a win for me. So one movement in the right direction. My diet changes. That's another. That's making small movements, but not quite where I want to be.
Yeah, I think for me, one of the things that I noticed recently was I was on a flight going to somewhere, I can't remember where it was now, but it was to a meeting, I think, and it was one of those where I normally always get on the airplane and ask for a seatbelt extension, because that's something that I've always had to do. You know, I just kind of I got it into my head that I just don't sit and try now. I just go and I automatically ask for a seatbelt extension, so that I don't have to have that situation. And actually, this time on the plane, I asked for one, and then I got on the plane and I was like, oh, the seatbelt fits. Like, this is nice. I don't actually have to use the extension for once. And just even being able to use the tray table as well. Like, because normally I just wouldn't even try and do that, because it would always sit kind of on my tummy and not sit down properly. And I'd just be like, ugh. But it actually, and I just was like, gosh, so that actually felt quite nice. Like, and although it shouldn't feel nice, because ultimately I should be able to go on an airplane and really not feel like I have to be like asking for all these additional things to make my journey more enjoyable. But it did just feel nice that I didn't have to kind of stand out and like, you know, feel awkward again. So yeah, that's my win.
Oh, that sounds, a really nice moment to have on your travels, wherever you were. Oh, fantastic. As ever, a really, really informative podcast. I've learned loads again from both of you. Can't thank you enough for joining us, Sarah and Aamina, and for sharing so much knowledge about a topic that's, I think there's a lot of misinformation about. So hopefully through this, we've helped to debunk some of that and educate people, and look forward to hopefully speaking again.
Thank you.